Sleigh bells ringing, diamonds blinging, carols singing, favorite season. Sleigh bells ringing, diamonds blinging, carols singing, favorite season. They said, say Nick, what you got up in that bag, yeah. I got racks in my sack or in my bag, yeah. They said, say Nick, what you got up in that bag, yeah. I got racks in my sack or in my bag, yeah. Frozen, neck is frozen, catch me rolling, I'm the chosen.
Welcome to Saturday Morning Inspection. I'm Nick Rudman, joined as always by the man with fabulous hair, Andrew Mize. We are not your typical big sports media show with the big budgets, the fancy suits, and the hot takes. We got to make up for it. We got to work ridiculously hard. We got to do our research and be ridiculously good looking.
That's right, Nick. And because it's hard to be this good looking, sometimes we need some help. And that comes from you, the viewer. So whether you're watching on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, whatever your listening pleasure may be, we could use your help. If you could leave us a like, a comment, you could subscribe on YouTube. All of those help. On YouTube, Apple, and Spotify, we're at Saturday Morning Inspection. On Facebook and Twitter, we're at SMI Football Show. And you can always find all of our latest news at smishow.com, our website. And be sure to check out our new breaking news section for all of your latest news stories. That being said, Nick, it's time for my favorite part of the show, a time where you get to quiz me a little bit to get us warmed up for our deep dive section.
Yeah, man, let's do it. Let's get after it. I got a good one, a good trivia question for you. So we'll just jump right into it. All right, so this is a who am I?
Okay.
So here we go. So I have played in the wild card round twice in the last 5 years. One time I ended up winning the Super Bowl. The other time was my last game in that uniform. Who am I? Three, two, one. He won the Super Bowl last year. That's your hint.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, yeah.
When they must have not gone to the Super Bowl that year then.
No, they didn't.
The first time.
Yeah, they lost Tennessee in the first round.
Ah.
Right, and that was his last game as a Patriot.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I was thinking that, but then I was cheating by looking at our graphic that we have prepared. And I was like, well, I don't see the Patriots on here as a wild card twice, so that must not be the answer. Psych myself out. But that was a good one. He's who knew? You know, Tom's Super Bowl questions are always so hard because you have about 34 to pick from.
Yeah, anything with the Patriots or Brady in the playoffs, you know, it's most of the time with these guys you got like a 50-50 shot, but with Brady it's like 1 out of 20. The odds are not in your favor.
Oh, well, that leads us perfectly into our deep dive segment this week. And I think it's more than what we're calling it, but what we are calling it is, does home field advantage really matter, or how much does that play in to things as far as football goes? But it's a little bit deeper than that. I don't think it's just that. It's we're going to talk about what exactly goes into day-to-day of on game day, the day before, prep, install, all those kinds of things. And it's a very interesting segment, so make sure you stay tuned throughout this whole one. There's a lot of great stuff coming up. That being said, Nick, I'm going to bring up our graphic, and we can get right into it.
Yeah, so we wanted to start off to give you some evidence as to why home field advantage plays a role. And so right here, you've got the last 11 Super Bowl participants, and the winners are on the far left in their respective columns. You see the pairs of participants there on the screen. And what you can see there, right, is of the 11 Super Bowls, there are only two winners, two participants that were wild cards, and two other ones that won their division, but they still played in the wild card round. Everybody else had a bye. And what that tells you is that home field games really, really matter, especially in the playoffs, right? Because in the playoffs, you're playing a good team, obviously. You got to be a good team to get in the playoffs. It's a tough matchup. You know, everyone's beat up. Their injuries play a role. So things like crowd noise and routine and the prep going into and into the game and all week can play a huge role and make the difference in often these really close matchups.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. In the playoffs, the NFL is a 16 or now 17 game long process. It really weeds out the bad teams, so to speak. So in the playoffs, no, there's no really bad teams in the NFL, but in the playoffs, the cream of the crop, the creme teams are who make it there. And when you get to that level of football, that level of action, any little advantage you get counts. It goes a long way because at this point in time, everybody's playing their best football. Everyone's primed and ready to go. You've mastered the offense. You've mastered your defense. You know what you're going to do. So if you can get a little extra crowd noise, if you can get a little extra morale boost from being at home, seeing your family, sleeping in your own bed maybe, all these little things go to help. So that home field advantage really does make quite a difference if you think about it, because everything else the same. That's the only difference.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, you talk about a lot of the teams that, even that win in the first round of the playoffs, those are still division winners that then have to go on the road the next week. So that tells you that even these teams that went to the Super Bowl with a bye, they still had to beat at least one division winner. So that's usually a 10, 11, 12 game winner to get into the Super Bowl, if not 1, 2. So that tells you how important that home field advantage is. Like you said, you're playing a really good team. You need every little advantage you can get.
Now, if we go down this list, I think we can look at this and quickly pay close attention to line number 3. Now that we see that the Ravens beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl, we can look at the rest of the list. One thing you see, and we pointed this out, tons of buys. First round buy is a huge deal. Extra rest, extra everything. Like we said, every little advantage matters. What does a first round buy also bring? Home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Huge, huge, huge deal there as well. So, one thing that I like to bring to attention is how the NFL is different than every other sport because of a lot of these things, in that any little game at the end of the season, because there's so few games, every game really does matter for a good team. And any bad quote unquote team can really affect other teams' seasons. Like if you're a Jets, if you're a Jaguars, somebody like that, and you pop up out of the woodwork to beat a team, that loss can really be detrimental to them to get this first round by home field advantage seeding into the playoffs. And I think it's very interesting. There's not many other sports where one game can make such a big difference.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's why the matchups, Green Bay, for example, because going to Green Bay in the playoffs or going to New England, right? Cold weather road game, if you're a road opponent, is so brutally tough, especially with good fan bases. That's why it's so important during the regular season for contenders to try and beat teams like the Packers, like the Patriots, because you don't want to go through Lambeau Field or go through Foxborough and the Patriots. It's just too tough to win playoff games in those bad weather places.
Absolutely. And that's also why you see a huge lack of Florida-based teams on here, except for the end, but that's a Tom Brady-led Florida team.
Yeah.
So, have you noticed, though, outside of, let's look at this list really quickly, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Tampa, which is 4 out of, let's see, I don't know, like 20 teams on here. All of these are cold weather teams. I wonder if that plays any... Baltimore's a cold weather team. New York's a pretty cold weather team. Green Bay, Pittsburgh, New England. Seattle can get pretty cold. Denver can get really cold. Philadelphia also can get cold. Same thing with Kansas City. I wonder if that has anything to do with it. I mean, I've never really sat down and looked at all of this. Do you think home teams, like we said, adding extra advantages here, home teams that get the home field advantage and play in a location that is less desirable for other teams, does that give them an extra edge?
I think so, because I think, and we'll talk about it briefly, but if you're a road team and you go to play somewhere, and let's say it's Lambeau Field, right? You're going there, it's January, it's a playoff game. You land on a Friday or something like that. It's snowy, it's icy, it's cold, it's miserable, right? It's a shock to your system. And now you got to get ready to play a game. You got to go through all your, your routines the day before and game day. And that's just tough because that's if you're not used to the cold, if you're from a warm weather climate, that can be just a real surprise. It's almost like jet lag, right? You got to get acclimated to the new environment. Whereas the home team, they're already acclimated. They're in their comfort zone. They're going through their normal routine as if there isn't any problem in the world. They're used to that weather. They're used to that environment.
That's very interesting to me. Very interesting. But I think this was a really good starter to kind of give us a look at it. But you have a lot of first-hand experience with some of this stuff. Let's jump into a little graphic that you sent me earlier in the week, and I think it's very, very interesting.
Yeah, as you're pulling it up, what you see there is an itinerary from one of my home games. It was my junior year in college. And, you can see on the far left, that's our Friday, obviously college. This was the game before, or the day before the game, I'm sorry. And then you have Saturday, which is game day. And then you have Sunday, which is obviously the day after the game. And you can see the itinerary and the flow and all the activities and actions and meetings and practices and everything that goes before the game, up to the game, and the day after. Do you want to just walk through it and, starting with the day before and go through the whole weekend?
Sure. Would you like me to start reading for you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so on your Friday, I'll read through it, and then maybe you can. I'll read through day by day, one day at a time, and you dissect it for us a little bit once I get done. So on Friday, we got our 2:30 p.m. meeting. Then you have your 4:30 p.m. walkthrough at the practice field.
Yeah.
And
So
ahead.
the meeting thing, right? And this is right. You've had game plans and meetings all week. Everybody knows the game plan. The game, and you'll see this is going to be a common theme here, is that you have a meeting where you talk about the game plan some more, and then you go out to the practice field. Remember, you've practiced all week, and you go through a walkthrough of the game plan. Again, this is just going to be a recurring theme here as the coaches just keep trying to drill in these game plans and plays into players' head, even though I always wondered if they didn't get it by now, they're never going to get it. But anyway, keep going.
Absolutely. So then we have our 6:30 supper. Interesting word choice to call it supper, not dinner, but nonetheless. And then you have your chapel Riverview room. I'm assuming if someone wanted to go to church a little bit before hand, then depart for the hotel, North Charleston Inn. Then as soon as you arrive at the hotel, you're about 30 minutes after, offense-defense meeting, another meeting. Then at 8:20, you have a whole team meeting, snack, bed check at 9:30, lights out 10 o'clock. Let's go through the latter half,
Yeah, so here, this is, again, more meetings, right? Just, and why? You have an offense-defense meeting where the coach, again, goes through the keys of the game and the game plan. And this is all high-level, silly stuff, right? It's the head coach or the offensive coordinator. He's saying, guys, we got to run the ball well. We got to take care of the football. No dumb penalties. And you're just kind of like, well, duh. Like, if you had to tell us that, we're kind of in trouble already, right?
You'd think they'd come in and be like, listen, guys, emergency team meeting. I cracked the code. On the third snap count, number 4 is going to lift his hand up. This is going to be the optimal play to hit the seam for a touchdown. This is all I wanted to bring you in for. Something groundbreaking like that. Not that, okay, let's go over our same game plan for the 5th time this week.
Yeah, not even that. So what would happen a lot of times is at that Friday night meeting, the coaches would hand out tests. And you'd have to literally, it's like a test, like in school, right? They'd ask 20 questions or whatever. You have to write in answers. And again, I thought that was weird because what's going to happen? Like if the starters like screw up and don't know the test, are you going to bench your all conference player because you didn't do well on the test before the game plan?
Yeah. Could you imagine if Aaron Miller, the quarterback at the time, like failed the test? Well, I guess we're going to put in somebody else. I guess we're going to go another quarterback this week.
Or like if people don't, if people really fail it, like as a coach, I wouldn't want to know that, right? I would, because ignorance is bliss there. Because if the players really fail it and screw it up, like in these tests, you're going to go into the game thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to screw up the entire game plan. This is going to be a disaster. I wouldn't want to know that one way or the other. I would want to assume that they were right on track and they knew all the plays.
Do you think they actually graded the test, or they probably like throw them away afterwards?
That's actually a really good question. They probably, now I think about it, maybe they just threw them away afterwards. Just
got them to take this test, waste some time.
Or I wonder if like the coaches like took the test and then graded it once and saw it went really badly and then just never graded it again. Like,
Oh, that's a good question. We should get a coach on here and ask him that question.
that's good.
So after that, you have the offense defense meeting, and then you have a full team meeting. So again, another meeting. Snack.
So about this meeting, this was when a lot of times when the coach would bring in like an inspirational speaker or something like that to talk for like 10, 15 minutes. And again, this is weird because we're all football players. Do we really need to be inspired to play football? And if we need to be inspired, is the right time to be inspired the Friday night?
Yeah. Go figure.
It's not like we're going to sit there and be like, gosh, I was really thinking of really sucking tomorrow. But that speaker, he inspired me to play good.
Now I'm ready.
But even if you do get piped or pumped up, you get hyped up, you have to go right to bed. So you can't even take advantage of it.
Team meeting 8:20. I'm hyped out of my mind because of inspirational speaker. Now I'm going to power through my snack at 8:30. What kind of stuff would y'all get for a snack? Snack's a weird choice of words.
So this was 2 Chick-fil-A sandwiches most days, right? And it was kind of silly because it's fried chicken, so it's not necessarily the best food, I would think, the day before a game.
You think they'd give you like rolled oats with a protein shake or something?
Or something like that, or maybe just some fruit, or I don't know, something that actually maybe had some more nutritional value. Now, I love Chick-fil-A as much as the next guy, but at the same time, 2 fried chicken sandwich with honey mustard. They always gave us honey mustard. Probably not the best healthy alternative or healthy option the night before a big game.
Yes, absolutely. We can't be clear enough. No Chick-fil-A hate here. We're actually looking for sponsors, Chick-fil-A. So if you'd like to throw your hat in the ring, you can get on the list. It's quite a long list right now. So we'll get back to you as fast as we can, though. So we hit the snack, and we'll hit on, I'm curious, maybe after we go through a couple more things, we can hit on all the kind of pregame meals and things like that, because I think that's very interesting as well. But then lights out, 9:30, bed check. Okay, so now we're in bed at a hotel. And we're rolling over to the next day, game day, Saturday.
Yep.
So 7:30 a.m., wake up. 8 o'clock, a walkthrough at the hotel. You want to touch on that?
Yeah, again, it's just another meet, right? So we had a walkthrough Friday before. We had 2 meetings the Friday before. And then we have another walkthrough the game of to go through the exact same thing you've been doing all week and did yesterday.
So is a walkthrough, for those who may not know, is it exactly what it sounds like? You're just standing there and you go, okay, 32 power right, and you literally just walk through the play, and everyone just stands there, puts their hands up like they're blocking or whatever, and you just strictly walk through the play so you don't mess it up.
Yeah, so half of the walkthroughs are like that. In this case, yeah, so this would be in the hotel parking lot. So I'm not kidding you. We'd be in a parking lot outside. You know, people would be parking, leaving the hotel or something in the morning, and you get a few weird looks. But yeah, this is everybody lined up like in an offense, defense, in like sweatpants, and you just walk through the plays. Now, there are some walkthroughs, like if it's on the practice field, that you are more jog throughs or run throughs. There's just no contact and no pads.
So like hit the hole and keep going.
Yeah, but this one was literally just take a few steps and walk. And here's the funny part. You'd still have guys screw this up play-wise, but because it was so slow, like they would always kind of have time to correct a little bit, you know, just to kind of, so like they take a step and you hear a coach go, and then they like go the other way. The coach would be like, good job.
You got it. You totally didn't screw it up.
You totally didn't screw it up.
All right. So walkthrough, and it's game day. So of course they wouldn't hit you with a surprise meeting at 8:30 directly after the walkthrough. Team meeting 8:30. Goodness.
Yeah, this again, just in case we all forgot that we were playing a football game that day, the coach would tell us the big keys to victory and that we had a big game that day. Again, we might have all forgotten it. You know, we didn't do any football related activities for the last 6 days or the last 24 hours straight. But in case one of us did forget it, we have a good meeting here to remind us.
All right. Well, now we are departing to leave the hotel, go back to the school, go back to campus. We're at campus. We have our pregame meal. / taping. I'm assuming that means like athletic taping.
Yeah. So that would be ankles and wrists and stuff like that.
Did you ever get your wrist or anything like that taped?
So in high school, I would do what's called spatting, and that's when you tape outside of your cleats. And the reason I did that in high school, because I was always scared to death my cleat would come off or something like that. And I'd have to leave the field or something. So that always just bugged me. That was kind of an irrational fear. In college, they didn't spat. Our team didn't spat. So I never was a big tape guy. I don't know if you remember when I broke my hand a couple times, I think senior year, maybe junior year,
especially your pinky.
Yeah. So there you go. There's that one for you.
Beautiful.
But yeah, so things like that, I would get taped up. Right.
Okay.
If I had the soft cast, that would be taped up. If I had a dislocated finger, I'd tape that. But I was never just a wrist and ankles guy. That was never really my thing. It's all personal preference. It really doesn't do a whole lot support wise. At least I don't think. Some people just like it as it's like a security blanket kind of thing. It makes you feel good.
Did you wear gloves ever?
So yeah, I wore gloves. Basically mainly because I'm going to be honest, mainly because they look cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you don't wear gloves, your hands get all bruised and bloody pretty easy, and that kind of stinks walking around with bruised, bloody hands. So I like the idea of wearing gloves because they always look cool and it protected my hands a little bit. But
dual purpose. Good choice. And
the primary reason was because they look cool. Just in case anyone wanted pictures of me on the sideline, I wanted to look like a legit football player, with gloves. Without gloves, you look kind of. If you don't have gloves and you're not on the field, you look really, really bad.
Absolutely.
But if you're not on the field and you do have gloves, hey, that guy could be a player.
He's just resting. He's probably about to go back in.
Exactly.
All right. So 9 a.m. pregame meal taping, 10:55, bus to stadium, 1 o'clock, beat Samford. I'm glad that they put beat on there as if you were to forget that you're supposed to win the game.
I don't understand. Maybe because the coaches had access to all of our GPAs, that maybe they had access to some people that were doing really, really bad in school. So they felt like they had to really, really emphasize some of these key things to us. But again, if we needed a reminder to beat the team we were playing, probably not a good sign.
And I think people should know, though, what was the Citadel's GPA like good compared to other schools?
We were above average. We were not like the top tier. I think Wofford in our conference was usually a notch above us. We had a couple academic All-Americans, but we had a pretty good GPA.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then one other thing that, makes a lot of sense is people kind of think, okay, football players all get like easy classes, like cupcake people. That did not happen at the Citadel. I don't think very many professors were like super forgiving just because you're an athlete. Is that true or not true?
Yeah, you're exactly right. So I had a professor, and so we had homework due on a Friday, and it was a road game, so I was traveling. And I said, hey, can I turn it in Monday? And I said, what? And he told me, he says, well, that's not a fair advantage for you to get an extra weekend to work on it. Never mind that we're traveling and had a game. So what I had to do was I sent him pictures. This is no joke. I sent him pictures of my completed homework Thursday night and then turned it in Monday because I wasn't going to be at class to turn it in. So he had assigned it like Wednesday or Thursday or something like that. So I completed it Thursday night at like midnight, took screenshots with my laptop camera, emailed it to him to say, hey, I did it, and then turned it in Monday. Like that's kind of how the stuff we had to put up with.
Yeah, but Nick was easy in school though. I always had so much more homework than him. It was much harder for me as a criminal justice major instead of his electrical engineering. So he had it pretty easy. Don't feel too bad for him.
Absolutely not. I think you played 500 games of Madden to my 1 all during the school.
Yeah, I was able to redraft at least like 7 teams per week. That was my favorite thing to do, is draft a team. I didn't actually like playing with them. But all right, so we've now hopefully. Do you remember? Did you win this game?
Oh my goodness! I think Samford. I think we did. I think this went into like overtime. I think
we have successfully defeated Samford.
Yes.
Now we're returning to school, and I'm assuming you get back at whatever time, and you at least get a little bit of rest until the next day.
Yeah, so you shower, change, and you go out and have a good time, whatever you want to do it at night, right? But keep in mind, right, and you can see in the schedule, you have a whole Sunday's worth of activities going on. So Saturday night, you can go out, you hang out with friends or do whatever the heck you want to do. But Sunday, you've got a boatload of activities, and you see that starting down the list. You want to get us going? I think what's the first one? Treatment if you got hurt, and then
Yeah,
I'll let you
10 to 11:30 sports med treatment. Then 2 o'clock evening study period for travel squad. Also non-dress lift, so people who didn't dress for the game have an additional lift. 3 p.m. is study period for the non-traveling squad. Is non-dress and non-travel the same thing?
You can dress and not travel.
Okay.
So usually for obviously home games, it's cheaper to dress, right? Because if you travel, you have to pay for that person's hotel room and food and all that. So the program makes a decision, hey, we're only going to travel 60 or whatever the number is, but we're going to dress 80 at home because it's cheaper to dress them.
All right, so then evening studying period for our non-travel squad. And then, if you didn't think it could get any worse, at 3 o'clock after the study period was for the regular team, the actual travel squad, offense, defense, meeting, and a lift.
Yeah, it starts all over again. And this is a meeting, right? These are the meetings are great where if you win the game, the coaches say, hey, good job, but we got a lot of work to do. If you lose the game, the coaches say, we have a lot of work to do. Right? There is no difference. You just go in, you watch the film, and the coaches just crucify you. You know, it's just a whole bunch of this play was bad, that play was bad. Even on good plays, you'd be like, hey, your footwork wasn't very good there, or your hand placement wasn't very good there, or whatever. Right? You can win a game 40-0, and coaches will find a million plays to just beat up on.
I wish one time like someone would come in and be like, all right, boys, it was perfect. There's nothing more you could work on now. Let's end the meeting now.
I think eventually it will happen. I think eventually a team will play a perfect game and a coach will come in and just like have like a spasm or something because there's nothing bad. Everything did everything perfect. And they just won't know what to do with themselves. I think they'll just need to go to a quiet room and just kind of like work it out internally. It hasn't happened yet, but it will happen one day.
All right. Then finally, dinner. And of course, another restful team meeting at 6 o'clock and special team. And then 6:45, you actually have practice?
Yep, it's a practice. It's not a hardcore heavy duty practice, but you're out there in helmets. You're running through special teams and drills and footwork and going through the beginning of next week's game plan. And here's the other part of this practice that really stinks. This is the practice where you do all the punishment for things that screwed up the day before during the game. So let's say you fumbled 5 times or whatever, not you, but the team. So, and the coaches decide we fumbled 5 times. We're going to do 20 up downs for fumble. So even if you obviously didn't fumble or didn't even play like I did, you know, why do I have to do 100 up downs? But you did. The whole team would have to do them. And that was a big part of this practice. Conditioning also you'd also do like some more conditioning Sunday night too, which was wind sprints and things like that. So Sunday practice was never it wasn't as hard as some of the other practice, but it wasn't a cakewalk either.
All right, Nick. Now that we have gone through all 3 days, the last subject I would like to touch on for our deep dive segment is something everyone has been dying to know. What kind of meals would the team have?
So we'll start with the Friday night meals because this was always interesting. So it was usually a lot of like grilled chicken and baked potatoes and salads and stuff. But here's the thing. They would have all kinds of honey mustard and sauces and all that kind of unhealthy crap and dressing. And they always had ice cream. So one time we were on the road, I think we were at Western Carolina, and the entire offensive line found that we had this ice cream. It had kind of a caramel flavor to it. And if we added a touch of salt, it was delicious. So literally all of us just pounded probably gallon after gallon of ice cream the day before a huge game against a conference opponent.
I'm sure your one teammate that was lactose intolerant, that probably boded well for them.
No, he had a rough night, but everyone else did good. We had a fun time.
Oh,
but
what about the next days?
Yeah, so for pregame, this part was the same kind of grilled chicken and things like that. You'd have some pasta, but one of my favorite things is they always had pancakes. Whether it was an early game or a late game, they always gave you pancakes, which was hilarious because you just get a huge stack of pancakes covered in maple syrup and just go to town. Now, I guess maybe there's some science saying that pancakes and syrup gives you carbs and energy, but I tell you what, after you eat all that breakfast food and then you start heading down to the locker room, you can get a little bit of a food coma going on. So you got to watch out. Sometimes you see a player have a bad game on Saturdays and Sundays. Maybe they had a little too much pregame meal, maybe a little too much syrup with their pancakes.
See, when I was wrestling, not only did I eat a little bit because you weren't allowed to eat, period, but I would always eat like a very light meal, like a granola bar or something, because I couldn't ever, like you said, I'd get sluggish if I ate too much.
Well, the thing for me, like I said, because I didn't play very much, I didn't have to worry about it too much.
Enjoy while you can.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's free food, right? You're in college. You gotta crush it.
Absolutely. And then finally, what kind of games would you eat on your Sunday, like post-game meals?
Yeah, so we would have sometimes food brought in. So this would be when like boosters or sponsors, they'd put us up and have us a little dinner. They always called it steak night, but it wasn't steak most of the time. It was usually something much cheaper. And if it was steak, it was the cheapest possible beef you could imagine. It was meant to be kind of like a treat, but it was always kind of an ordeal because you had to sit there with if you're around boosters or whatever, or the different donors, you had to like be proper and polite and clean shaven and dressed up a certain way. You couldn't just cut loose. So it was meant to be a reward, but it was almost like another practice, or even worse, it was almost like another meeting. It was really, really close to another meeting.
I literally look at the schedule and don't think they could possibly fit in another meeting.
Yeah. Next time you're at your big corporate America job and think that, gosh, I wish I could be in, the world of sports where there's no more meetings and nonsense and, everything's so efficient and streamlined and dedicated. I'm telling you right now, it's not. Yeah.
Oh, well, anyways, that was good. I think this cleared up a lot. Is there anything else that you'd like to touch on? I think we've got the meat of it, but.
Yeah, no, I think it was a good segment. Really enjoyed talking about that. We're going to have to take a deeper look into some more of these related topics in the future.
Absolutely. Maybe we can go into like dietitian, like pregame meals. I have a cousin who's a dietitian. We can maybe get her on and ask her some stuff.
I got racks in my sack.